Hello, people. I'm Jessica Pearson.
Hello, I'm Tara Shannon.
I'm Sam Stone.
I'm Mikayla Menzies.
And we're in the Syn Wagon, and we're just thankful.
Welcome to the Syn Wagon.
Welcome to the Syn Wagon.
Yeah.
And if you're just listening and not watching, it's SYN.
Yeah, S-Y-N.
The Syndicate.
But we like to do many a pun.
Yes.
Many a pun. We are joined by Mikayla Menzies. She's been living at Tara's house, and so we're like, we do a podcast, jump on it. And she's like, well, it's in my room, so I guess I have to.
I guess I had to be here.
Because I would just be sitting on the bed awkwardly watching you.
Yeah.
In the space I'm living in, so. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on it. We're going to have to just fly you out all the time to be on it now. I feel like we're a good foursome.
We are.
You're the fourth wheel.
You are.
I'm the wagon.
Our
That's
wagon.
so cute.
We're a three-legged wagon.
Yeah. I love it.
That's
Yeah.
really cute.
We should have a guest all the time now.
We
Be the
should.
fourth
Yeah.
The
wheel.
fourth wheel. We do.
wheel.
We're not complete without the fourth wheel.
Tricycles can, though, like, survive. So if
But
we have to, we can do
tricycles
it.
have
But-
four wheels.
No.
No.
That's why
No,
it's called a
that's-
tricycle.
Oh, I'm thinking of when you have the learning bike, when you have the bike.
served us
Oh,
well.
like
I know.
you're thinking of
I'm
like
thinking
the
of
training
the
wheel.
training
Oh,
wheels.
the training wheels.
Never mind. My
Never
brain
mind.
is now here. Thank you. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah, we're a tricycle wagon, but you've completed us.
Yeah.
Here to talk about music, and the music best now. So,
Yeah, the music business.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's my midlife crisis.
Yeah, we're all in the same midlife
There's
crisis.
artists are constantly in an ever-evolving cycle
Cycle of
Yep.
of,
Grace
you know,
meltdowns.
woo, I feel amazing, I'm the best,
Yes.
to like self-hate.
There's
Yeah,
no
that's
like
right.
middle ground. It's
No,
either
it's
just
up,
like up
yeah.
or just
Yeah, you can't be
Yeah.
just enjoying flowing. Like it's
No.
full throttle, dams open, just like of water of happiness, or like shut, nothing's coming out, and it's just like an empty hole of numbness.
Okay, well, as I get older, I'm learning to balance a little bit more. Less peaks, less valleys. This more. So
I
it
mean,
gets
but the
better.
extremes make for awesome art.
They do.
Oh yeah.
They do.
It's like every time that somebody
Yeah.
you see these major artists go through a breakup, like poor Kelly Clarkson. Everyone's like so excited for her next record because she just went through a divorce. So everyone's like,
Yep.
the music's gonna be
Great.
amazing. Same with the Adele's record,
Adele.
like,
Adele.
oh my god,
Divorce
it's gonna be
record.
so good, and it's so
Yeah.
bad that we're like
Yeah, I
happy
know.
for
So
sadness,
invested.
Right?
but like sadness
Like,
brings
so
such
invested.
amazing music,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
does.
Well,
It's
and
just
it's like when they get in a happy relationship, you're like, oh my god, you're so cute, but I hope you break up soon. Just because I want,
Just for the music.
I just want to feel.
do it for the music.
Do it for
Take
the
one for the
music.
team.
Who was? Oh, I can't remember what musician I was talking to about this, but like we were talking about how when you're sad, you write great songs. So she would be like, oh, like I'd like start fights with my partner just so I can get angry or sad. And I'll be like, okay, babe, it's done. I need to go. Like you've done your purpose. Bye. And then she'd go and like write a song. Like it's just like you're basically like tormenting your partner because you're like, be mad at me. I need to be mad at you for something.
That's
like,
right, yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, no, fight's over. I need to write this song down. And then like they're still mad. They're like, no, I need to fight. And she's like, no, songwriting time. Songwriting time.
Pause this argument. We'll finish this later.
So once you go through the heartbreak of the century, and you write a great song, and you've spent a very long time working on it, making sure it's great, making sure it like connects with the audience, so you have a killer song that's been rewritten to to what it needs to be at that moment.
It's the best it can be.
Yeah. So what now? Huh? What do we do?
Tara, what do we do?
You
Tara.
call Tara.
You call Tara. And you say, Tara.
Tara already knows though because she's already terrorized the song.
She's terrorized it.
Yeah,
as we call
So
it, terrorizing the song.
It's been terrorized. So I guess this is the first thing is your song ready to be recorded? So that's a whole other podcast. We could talk about that. But you deciding that your song is great is not the measure of success on whether a song should be recorded or not.
Wah, wah,
How
wah.
you feel about your song, sadly.
How
is
your
not-
mom and dad feel about your
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want. If you write a song, you record it, put it out there, you can totally do it. It's art, it's a free world. But don't expect anything to happen with it. Like, don't expect to get an audience, build momentum or anything like that, unless your songs are have you gone through pre-production, they're ready, they're vetted by published, like, team people. If you don't have access to a team, like a publisher or label or something like that, use the people around you that you love, but change how you use them.
Yes.
And I went through this with one of our new syndicate members, and she was like, this is amazing. And actually her partner was in the session with her. I was like, see how this takes the pressure off you? So bring in the people that you love and play the song, and then ask 2 questions and 2 question only. And none of those questions are, what do you think and do you like the song?
Yeah.
Those are not the questions to ask.
Yeah.
If they are not a songwriting professional, the only way they can come at answering it is from a consumer standpoint. And you may not be making music that's the genre that they like, so that's just setting
And
everybody up
even
for
if
failure.
your partner happens to be also a songwriter or something,
Yes.
because they're your partner, they may adapt how they would normally critique a song.
Yeah.
For keeping the peace in the relationship.
Yeah.
So you ask 2 questions. You play the song, you say, okay, 1, did you feel, sorry, it's 3 questions. Did you feel anything? Did it make you feel anything? Any emotions? Did it start a movie in your head? So while they were listening to the song, did it start a movie in their head? And then 3, was there anything confusing about it? Like, did you notice, you disconnected, or where did I lose you if you disconnected from the song? And that feedback is golden, because then you can take it back and you can take that information and keep working your craft.
Exactly.
So all of that to say, really make sure your songs are ready to record. And then what do you do?
Well, I think what you hit it right on the knob on the head. What is it?
The nail on the
A
head.
nail on the head.
Nail on the head. You hit
The knob on the head was
the knob.
great.
You
That was
hit
so much
the
better
knob on the head.
What if your head is a knob?
What if
We are all knobs.
that's right.
We're all knobs. And
We just
you
hit our heads together.
Second hits is pre-production, right? A lot of
Yes,
people skip. They have the
they
song.
skip
They've written the
production.
song. Even if you've rewritten the song and you know that you've talked to people, you've asked these questions, they're at that space, or you've gone to a mentor and you've figured it out. A lot of people just go right to production.
Yeah.
You miss the pre-production.
Yeah.
So let's get into that, because pre-production for me for my album took like
14
8 months, 14
Oh, no,
months,
8 months, yeah.
like about 8 months of pre-production. And it's so worth it on the other end, seeing the benefits of all that. So let's get into pre-production.
So and just going back a little bit on what you said. So when you say 8 months of pre-production, how many hours a week would you say you were spending on pre-production?
Oh God, I have no idea.
But was it when you say 8 months, just for a listener who maybe
So it's
doesn't
not 8
know,
months of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's more from the time I started writing the songs for the album to even the time in studio recording, I was in pre-production, basically, right? When you're writing the songs, when I think of pre-production, I'm thinking of if you're doing an album, curating. I think of what sounds do you want your album to sound like?
so you
what
might have by
atmospheres.
curating. I'm breaking this down for anyone who
This
has
is
no.
true.
So because as a listener, you're like, what is pre-production? What does curating mean?
Yeah.
Curating can be let's say you could have 20 amazing songs, but you're only doing a 10-song album. So it doesn't mean because you have 20 amazing songs, you have to use them all in this project. Maybe they don't go together.
And all
maybe
at
you
that
don't have the
time,
budget
yeah.
for a 20-song album. Maybe you think you'll lose a listener. No one's going to listen to a 20-song album, maybe.
Yeah, it's about picking the songs that tell a story in the sense, right? We kind of, an episode ago, talked about, putting the songs together and releasing it as a story, right? When we used to listen to albums. And it's the same if you're doing singles. What is the story you're telling? So it's having a group of songs that connect in some way. They don't have to all be heartbreak. They don't have to all be happy. But it's about what is the story? What is the underlining theme in a sense of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the piece that people miss is marketing is a huge part of pre-production.
Oh, yes.
They think, I'm just going to make the record, then we'll think about it. No. Your marketing starts way before. So in pre-production. So the parts of pre-production to me are, well, not just the songs, but taking the songs that you know are ready for the record, but stretching them and putting them back. So expanding all different options. So your arrangements, the key you're doing it in, the speed you're doing it, so your BPM, your key, like thinking about the arrangements, so the colors of sounds, what instruments are you going to put? So what is the aesthetic, the overall thing for the record? All of that is pre-production. And what happens often is artists who write with their instruments, so if they write with the piano and they're more comfortable with only the white keys and no keys that have the black keys, they'll just write in C, but maybe their vocal instrument, that has not the best key for their vocal instrument. So that's a big piece the producer brings is really trying them in different keys, different speeds, because we write to our proficiency on our instrument, which can limit the, how the expression of the song or the
that
arrangement.
resonates with me 100% because I mostly, unless I'm in a co-write, if I'm writing on my own, I write with piano, but I'm a limited piano player or keyboard player. So, but vocally, I have way more range. So I often will write with no instrument because I feel limited by the instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the same thing happens. I might bring a song to Tara and I wrote it in a basic, simple key. And she's like, good song, but like we totally need to move this and the colors need to be different. And then, I collaborate with a piano player who's much more skilled and we can try to communicate the colors we think we hear, but I'm just not able to play. Right. Or they might have ideas of colors to add in, and that's such an important piece because if I just went in and recorded it the way like I played it, it is not the best version of what it can be.
100%. So it's, when you create a song, it doesn't just stop at, okay, these lyrics, we went through the whole process. The lyrics are like where they need to be. They connect. It's clear. It tells a story. You feel it. The melody works. It's now, okay, well, what instruments do you hear on this? Like, where do you hear it going? Are there solos? Is there an interlude? Is there a different color? What key are we doing it in? Like, all of that needs to be in the pre-production. You can work on it yourself. You can work on it with people. A lot of the times people will bring teams in, and then it's okay picking your team. But the whole time you're doing this, you're also, like you were saying, it's also the marketing. So is this going to be an album? Is this an EP? Are you releasing it as singles? Are you only doing a couple singles and then the full album? Are you doing all singles? Like all of this.
Because that affects everything. That affects your choice of artwork. It affects your team, what producer, engineer you go for. So having a really clear focus or a really clear idea of your storytelling with that collection of work is really key. That's a really important part of pre-production.
Do you want to talk a little bit about like reference tracks, like how you communicate that? A lot of people miss that piece. I find
that's so true. I mean, because music is a language, so it's really hard when you're communicating with people to explain the way you hear. Like Mikayla's like, I want it to sound like underwater.
I've literally said that so many times, and then it's so frustrating when somebody doesn't understand it. It's like trying to find the right language.
So it's like saying to somebody, describe Russian, describe English. It's really, really tricky. So using reference tracks is key. So if you're building your team, what you want to do is you want to find examples of songs already recorded that have the sound that you're looking for, or elements of the sound that you're looking for. Now, what's tricky, it sounds easy on the surface, but learning to listen like that is a skill. And a lot of people will be like, here's a Carrie Underwood track, but just because they want to be Carrie Underwood. But the track and the song they're cutting have no vibe that's the same at all. So reference tracks, is when they're done right, are a really important tool. When the person doesn't know what they're doing with reference tracks, it's not helpful to the producer at all.
Or you send reference tracks to a producer and they're all over the place and the producer's like, I don't even know where to start. There should be, your reference tracks shouldn't all like sound the same and be referencing the same thing, but there should be like a common thread. Or you should be saying, I'm giving you this reference track, like not because I want the whole song to sound like that track, but because I really like the cool ethereal sound that's in the back of that. And when I want to bring that element in.
Like,
time markers.
That's really helpful. Like this sound at this time, like this is what I'm thinking.
100%. And one thing I found too was like for my music, I love like a lot of harmonies. So I'd be like, ignore everything except for the vocals on this. I love how the vocals sound on
The
this
treatment
track.
of the vocals.
The treatment of the vocals, or how forward the vocals are in the track, or something like that, you know. And then I'd be like, I love the sound of this violin. Like, this violin is the sound I would want, you know. And almost, I like to do it like, because my music is very acoustic, I like to do it per instrument.
Yeah.
So I'll usually, unless I find a track that has a lot of that, I'll do like, this is a per instrument sound that I want, and then I'll be like, this is the overall recording sound I want. So like, when people are listening to it, this is what I want it to sound like recorded, but this is the instrument sounds I want, you know.
Right.
Where like, I know, Mikayla, you do a lot of your music has like that pop ethereal, it's very feeling vibe focused. So how, you kind of said the time steps, so how do you go about finding it when it's more electronic in that sense?
Yeah, like I can hear the, like I usually write with electric mostly now, or acoustic, kind of depends on the song, but I can hear the whole production as I'm writing it. So it's like, it's really easy, and then I kind of go into some of the songs that I listen to, like whether it's like Spotify artists or on YouTube or whatever, and pick different sounds that I like can hear. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But it's like I kind of can see the end result as it's forming.
Yeah.
So like I'll hear certain drums or like certain guitar sounds. And
Like,
so
you're producing it in your mind
my
as
head
you're doing
as I'm writing it,
It's
and
just you maybe at this point feel like you don't have like the technical skill to execute it.
Yeah.
So you bring in either a co-producer or like a technician who can you can communicate your idea.
And it's nice when you're on, like, it's a really like powerful thing when you're on the same wavelength as somebody creatively. Like, I know when I worked with Eric, it was like, you actually get me, this is so awesome. Because it can be really frustrating when you know like how you want it to sound, but you can't quite execute it quite yet, or don't have the tools to. So
Finding that partnership is so key. I think it's important for people to also understand the difference between an engineer and a producer and a co-producer. You know, understanding really what the roles are, because what we see so often is people hiring an engineer in a studio and expecting them to be a producer, but they're not. So an engine, just so everybody knows, like just bare like basics, an engineer's job is to capture the sound. So their job is the technical stuff. It's the setting up of the microphones. It's the setting up of the board, the signal path, you know, creating the sessions, you know, and recording and capturing all the sounds. Now, some engineers, you know, are acting as a producer as well, but they produce the final product, but the artist is doing the other part of the producer, which is the artistic vision, the branding of the sound, the budget, the timeline, the delivery, like all of that other stuff the producers do. So having that conversation with the people you bring in is really important. And a lot of people don't know how to have that conversation because they don't know what they're hiring. They just know they want to record their songs, you know? So like, I want to record the songs. And I mean, we've heard so many nightmare stories and positive, like all right across the board, but it really comes down to communication and expectation. So understanding what it is. So if you're going into a studio and you're paying like $75 an hour or whatever the rate is, and you're getting an engineer attached to those hours, that does not make them a producer.
No.
Automatically.
And it shouldn't be assumed.
It's not assumed.
And there can be, some people get in like actual trouble with this because some producers, depending how they work, and again, a lot of people are uncomfortable either talking about money or splits, or some producers expect to have like a cut of the master, and that's just like how they do all their business, which we're not saying that's right or wrong. Like, every situation is different. You look at it and it depends what they're doing, their involvement, but a lot of people don't ask that question or realize, and at the end, like, they in their mind think they've just been working with an engineer, but then by the end of the process, when all is said and done,
it's not communicated.
you know, it's like, oh, you want a piece of this, and that's how you work, and we didn't talk about this. Again, a good producer should be leading that conversation if you're not experienced in that, but there are also producers who will take advantage of that.
Oh my God, so many stories. So the first thing to determine once you have your songs is, do I need an engineer or do I need a producer or do I need both? So then, because if you are like Mikayla, you are a producer in your head, you can, and you figure out how to communicate it, your budget's smaller, you can hire an engineer and give them direction. And, you know, if you're developing, it may take some time to kind of communicate and hit or miss, but you are producing the project. So meaning Your decision on the artistic direction, the arrangement, the final mix is yours.
Yes.
So if you aren't that way, which is like me, I mean, sometimes I hear arrangements, but I'm not that kind of producer. I have produced music, but I hire very talented engineers who really do the arrangement part of things. And I like the overall artistic and the branding and the timeline and the budget. Like I can do that part pretty well, but not the actual arrangements. So for somebody like me, I want a producer. So, and I'm comfortable completely handing over the reins. Like they understand me, they know me as an artist, they know my artistry, and I trust them to bring their creative vision to life, and I don't interfere with that. I'm trusting you to take this and bring it to life. So if you're going to do that road, you really want to know that person and really do your research on what their style is and what they lean to, so that you're really aligning with the right producer. Because it's like you can't, get a dog and expect them to meow. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't like just bring in whatever producer is available to you or accessible to you and expect them to just do something else.
Exactly.
So do your research and really understand the roles that everybody's playing. And the splits thing too is, I mean, I could go on and on about this all day, and that happens on the writer's side as well as the master. So, we probably will have another podcast all about like the copyrights. But really boiled down simply, when you write a song, so the sort of the legal definition of a song is the lyric and the melody. So whatever you can sing a cappella is really what falls under the copyright. So the composition copyright, which is automatic in Canada. So if we sat here right now and we wrote a song, automatically we are protected by copyright. So just it's automatic upon creation. So when you go into a studio, what some engineers and producers will do, because if they're working with a developing artist, they know automatically that they're probably going to have some input that's going to change the lyric and or melody. So they preemptively, from the beginning, say, listen, I'm taking 10% of your writer's share on this song, because I know that through this development process, you're going to realize that cat doesn't rhyme with bird, and we're going to have to make it cat and bat. Like, do you know what I mean? Because they know already they're much more experienced. And first, when I heard that, and some friends of mine do that, I was just like, oh God, no, like that's terrible. But it isn't terrible. It makes total sense. Rather than at the end have this awkward conversation that you came in with this lyric and melody, and this lyric and melody is leaving, and I was part of that creation process. So I think that that's pretty cool. And then the master percentage, so depending on the tiers of producers you work with. So the higher you go up, if you will, as far as fees for the producer, and what drives that is their credentials, the body of work they've done, their experience and access. And so they will automatically, their producer agreement, have a percentage of the master. And what is that for? That's not because they're terrible people and they're trying to grab onto everything. That's because they're probably working for you as an independent for less than what their fee is for maybe major labels. And so in case there is success with your track, like it gets picked up, or it's viral, or gets picked up by radio or whatever, then they are compensated for the fact that they did it for a little bit less money for you.
Exactly.
That's really
They're
what that's about.
protecting themselves,
That's
which
right.
makes complete sense.
Exactly. And I think it is, a lot of people don't know that, right? So a lot of people might go into it and then be like, oh my God, they want this. I've been screwed over in that sense, where it's like when it comes down to the math, they're going to give you a deal on this.
It's
but if
partnership.
if it gets into sync and goes into a movie and makes like millions of dollars, like they gave you a discount on that, like basically by not charging you a lot, they're buying into your master.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's the exchange. So it's basically like, instead of like they are charging this, but they're giving this much back to you because they're buying into your master. Is how you almost want to think.
But
of
with
it.
that said, every situation is so unique and different.
Yes.
And you do need to be careful, because in every industry, there are people who do take advantage and stuff. So you do want to make sure you look at that, and you talk to someone you trust, or go to a resource you trust, and just say like, hey, this is what's on the table. Does this make sense? Like, and ask yourself the same question. Like, does it feel fair to you? and the reasons why, because, you
And
you
also,
never know.
just because they've worked with amazing names and all these big names doesn't mean that they're also great people. Like, they could also try to rip you off. So
and
is
it doesn't
good
mean
to-
they're a good match for you, too.
Exactly. So it's always about, like what you said, Tara, like, you're looking at what you want out of it and make sure that they're going to be capable of creating that sound you want. And then also, like, it's one of those things, and again, we've talked about this a lot, is that in other businesses, money is always first. Okay, well, I want this much of this thing. How much will you give this to me for?
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in music, it's a very, like, walked around subject. So, like, being upfront and talking about this is something that we should make way more normal.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
like, you'll charge this much for this. I want this share and this and that. Perfect. You have all of that down. Like, I find that I'm now starting to want to take on a bit more of a co-producer role because I'm definitely not like you, Mikayla. I don't hear it, but I know what instruments I want on there. I know the ambience and the atmosphere I want to create.
You can see
and
the vision too,
I can
right?
see the end result in a sense. I just don't know how to get from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know the whole alphabet to get there.
Right.
I don't know what it takes to do that to get there.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to be able to work with someone and sit in pre-production. So, like, with Neil on my first album, On the Line, like, we sat in the room together. We were like, okay, what instruments? What do we hear here? What do we hear there? Like, what do you think would elevate this? What's the atmosphere? Like, we spent hours in a studio just talking about that and finding that and figuring that out. And again, with Neil, like, the big thing too is we did pre-production, like, in March, and we didn't start actually recording and working together until October of that year. And it was that sense of, like, in March we had met up and he told me straight up, we were very sharp. He's like, I won't charge you for this. Like, we're gonna, like, we want to see if we're a good fit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see if I can.
You should
actually
really like date the person first to a certain extent.
It is a
Yeah.
relationship. It's like a bandmate. It's like a partner. Like, you are creating a child together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is an album. This is
creating a
these
child
are your
together.
babies.
It's true. It's so
It's
true.
like, right? If you have a child, they're not just going to be like, well, throw them at whatever school's there. Like, you know, like, you look into the schools. You want to know
the teacher.
You know, meet the teachers. You want to know that they're getting a good education. Like, that's what you're doing with your songs.
Yeah.
Like, will they dress your songs the way they want? Like,
Talk to other people they've worked with before.
Exactly.
Like, say, like, hey, do you have a couple people you've worked with recently?
Yes,
You know,
recently.
not like they give you someone from 30 years ago or
Okay,
something.
let's add this on this.
Yeah.
So,
Here we go. She's getting warmed up, folks.
the fire's lit. The fire's been lit.
so if you find a producer and their credential is they were the lead guitarist for Led Zeppelin, or no, sorry, that's a bad example because everybody in that band's fucking sorry.
This way,
Edit this
this
way,
way.
edit that. So let's say they were the lead guitarist for a mildly successful band that you may have heard of, so you know the name. So they are selling a service to you as a producer, and the credential they're using is that they were a guitarist, a lead guitarist in XYZ band. The fact that they were a guitarist in that band does not equal the ability to be a producer.
No.
And so many people that I see are like, yeah, but he worked with so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, great. In what capacity? Oh, well, he was the lead guitarist. Okay, great. So are you hiring him to be a guitarist? Well, no, I'm hiring him to be a producer. Based on?
It's like,
You don't have like the top heart surgeon in the world, like, I don't know.
Fix your teeth.
Yeah.
well, it's
Exactly.
like being
It's just
like,
not the same. Like, are
Exactly.
they really smart? If they really studied and read, could they maybe be capable?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like that's
Like when
not.
you're researching, research. Like, don't get bedazzled by
They
names.
know this person and
Oh
they
my God.
know. It's like it's like hiring someone to landscape your yard who works at the garden center in Walmart. Like,
That doesn't mean
that
they
doesn't mean that they know how to landscape. It doesn't mean that they know what plants go with
right.
what. They could tell you what aisle the plant's on.
Yeah.
But like, unless they're like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to know the study. Just because they know so and so, don't get don't
get more caught
blinded.
up on the song
Exactly.
and like the work rather than who's
the,
singing it or
the
doing
art.
it.
And now I mean, we are in a business where names are currency.
Yes.
So there is an economic thing that happens in our business where if you're working with so-and-so, you sometimes automatically get more street cred, or maybe your record will be listened more, or maybe radio will play it because so-and-so produced it. So that is a thing that exists, but it should never be the primary reason. It shouldn't trump the art and the work first. So it should be, find your music match, like the person who gets you and understands that you don't have to finish your sentences and they get it. And if they happen to have a whole lineage of whatever, great. And if that, and you can afford them, you know, great. But what I also see people do is they go into it believing that if they only get the chance to, if they could only have the chance to work with so-and-so, they will be elevated. And that will be the thing that makes them famous or successful somehow. And it just doesn't happen like that. It can open some doors for you strategically, perhaps, but it will not build your audience automatically because you're working with.
No, and if it's not the right match, then
Don't
you're
force
not,
it. Yeah,
you're
like, just-
going to force something, or you don't work well together, or they don't see your vision, then you're just going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed with the music you have. You would have spent all of this money on something you don't even want to release.
And you also have to spend so much time with this person, you know? And if you don't like hanging out with them, like to a certain, I'm not saying like you should be best friends with your producer and like have beers every weekend, but like if you wouldn't want to hang out with them and have a nice chat, and like if you would be like watching the clock for an hour-long coffee time at Starbucks with them, if that hour wouldn't fly by or you wouldn't enjoy that hour, then do you want to spend umpteen hours with them in the studio?
Exactly.
Like that, if you were always looking at your watch and being like, oh, like this person's so annoying, I need to get out of here. Like, do you really think your art is going to be the best it could be?
Well, yeah, and that's what you're putting into that energy.
Yeah,
And you're so lucky as independent artists. You're so lucky because you can choose. There are so many horror stories, and a lot of pop artists and big artists talk about it, where they're signed with a major label, and the label decides what producer they're working with. Kelly Clarkson comes to mind. There's a great interview out there where I forget who the producer was. He's a big name. And so she was forced to work with this producer. And it was such a horrifying experience for her, but she had no power in that situation. And it was not fun, and she had no choice. So, well, the choice is don't do what the label says and then get dropped if that's what you choose. So I guess you always have a choice. But so as indies who are mostly who's watching, you know, you have the option. So take the time to really do your research. The other thing that I see is that I don't want to hurt their feelings. Oh my God. It's like a new developing artist get into situations where they hire somebody, they maybe don't do the work or the research or whatever, and they're not happy, but they haven't communicated it at all. It's so unfair to the engineer producer because they'll send like the first reference mix, this is the first mix, and then, you know, the artist is like, oh yeah, it's okay. Oh yeah, I love it. I love, you know, it's all positive, which doesn't give the person any clue, any signal there's anything. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, it's like, yeah, I listened to it with my family, or I got feedback from all these people, and I really don't like the track at all. Like, and fairness, it can take some time for an artist to figure out their own feelings about it if they're going through a new situation. But that's what you say. You say, I need to sit with it.
Exactly.
It doesn't, like, right on first listen, I'm not loving it on first listen, but let me sit with it for a bit and absorb it a bit.
And never, like, if a producer, a friend, anyone sends you ever, like, a track or a song, you should try not to, like you're saying, respond and give feedback and tell them how you feel about it on first listen or right away.
No.
Like, listen to it when they send it to you, then maybe a few hours later that evening, listen to it again, then like sleep on it. The next morning, listen to it again, then respond.
And listen to it in different aspects, right? Listen to it in headphones. Listen to it on a speaker.
And
listen to it in your car.
are you comparing apples to apples? Because if you're an up-and-coming pop artist, and what you're comparing it to is like Sia, well, that's like, you know, a $50,000 track or more versus like maybe your budget's $2,500. Or if that, or less. So you're not comparing apples to apples. You know, so so that's another thing too, is to align your expectations, have a good communication. But the whole I don't want to hurt their feelings thing is like, you know,
And it's you're paying for it. It's your
You
time,
are.
and it's their time.
and I
so
see
it's
it
like,
more with women
Yeah.
and
Oh,
young
yeah.
women particularly,
Yeah.
because we are not taught to speak up. We are
No.
not taught that our voice and our opinion matters. We're still living in the echo of be pretty and be quiet. right?
Exactly.
And-
It's be pretty, be quiet, accept it. You pay for it, this is what you get.
That's
But
right.
In any other business, if you paid for a cake,
Yeah.
and you specifically said, like, then you were on the same page, and you were like, this is what I want from the cake, and you've asked for a Spider-Man cake, and they come back, and it's a Batman cake, you're gonna be like, okay, thank you. You're gonna be like, okay, this is
That's not what I ordered.
That's or hey, like they come back with a Spider-Man cake, but they did it in black and white, and you wanted it in color.
Right.
You know, you say, okay, like, you know what? I love the outline.
Yeah.
This outline's really great, but like, I think we're missing something.
And actually,
So-
that's a great analogy because what most people go in, they say, I want a superhero cake. So then the person says, okay, presents Batman, and you're like, oh no, I really want a Spider-Man.
yeah.
But you didn't say that.
But you didn't say
said a
Spider-Man, you said
superhero
superhero.
cake,
Yeah.
right?
To a superhero, to you might be Spider-Man, but to
It's
them
like,
it might be
it's like,
Batman.
I want it to sound underwater.
Yeah.
Okay, so they come back with their version of underwater.
Where
and
you
you're
like,
can't
no,
and you
not
can't
that
understand you can't understand one lyric that Mikayla Menzies is saying.
Well,
Totally.
She's got her scuba
Yeah.
gear in her mouth. You can't hear anything she's saying.
anything. It's like what form,
God,
right? Like,
yeah.
and that's again where we come into reference tracks.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're like, so that you say, listen, when I'm listening to this track, this sounds warm to me.
Yeah.
This is what warm is to me. So when I want something more warm, this is what I'm referring to.
right.
Yeah.
Because warm
Could
to
mean
me
something
can mean
else
something
totally
else to
different,
someone
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Exactly. Your producer might see that as yellow. They don't even see it as a heat. They see
Right.
it as a color.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
they're like, okay, so now I know when she says or when they say warm, I need more yellow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what the reference track is for,
Yeah,
right?
because they really do want to do a good job for you.
yeah.
Like
Most
mostly.
people
Most
do.
people, yeah.
They really
And most
do.
people want to hear, most producers, good producers, want to hear if you don't
Yeah.
like something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That helps them further build this legend and language between the two of you.
Yeah.
You're adding more tools to the tool belt every
That's right.
time you say you like something or you don't like something. Good producers will not like challenge you on not liking something.
They
No.
might like bring up like, and again, this is where what level are you working with on this producer? If you're working with a producer and you're saying this space, you're like, okay, I like this sound, but maybe we do this, or how about we do this? And the producer might be like, oh, like that's a cool idea, but did we think of this? You know, and you're bringing all this
Right.
concept and you're in the creation. Like that's again your pre-production, the creation of that, and then it's kind of like that creation of back and forth that you're also working with.
I also want to correct myself when I said a good producer won't challenge you. They should challenge you in like a healthy way.
Yeah,
You know, of
To dig deep
of
and
digging
try
deep
things,
and
yeah.
maybe to present ideas you wouldn't have thought of.
At any time, you know, you can stop.
Yeah.
You can say this
Yeah.
isn't working for me. I'm not enjoying this. And one of the trickiest parts of what we do as coaches is when somebody comes to work with us and they're in a project already.
Yes.
And they haven't done the pre-production or anything like that. And I've done it maybe a handful of times, but for the first thing I say is, sorry, we don't touch anything or comment on anything in a project that's already going. And it's so hard for us to watch somebody spending money on something that we know will go nowhere and do nothing for that artist
Exactly.
as far as building an audience, and they're thousands of dollars in, and it's not like they're rolling in cash. And the thing about this business that I find so tricky is that in other businesses, if you get a used car or something and
Yeah.
the person selling it to you knows that there's problems or whatever, they don't disclose it, or they're consciously aware and they're defrauding you, you know? And there's a recourse for that.
Yeah.
In the music business, you don't have, so nobody, very rarely are people really setting out to harm somebody.
Yeah.
It's really more about survival.
Yeah.
So you have a whole lot of people who were working in an industry, a version of the industry where they made a lot of money doing what they did, and then the economics shifted. And so now they're still trying to make the same money, doing jobs with developing artists. And so you get this scenario where the producer really believes they're really good at what they do because XYZ, they used to have a huge studio in Nashville or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so, and the artist is like, oh, well, this is great. He used to have a big studio in Nashville. He's the, he's the cat's pajamas, And so,
He's the cat's pajamas.
you go take out a loan or something and to do this record and whatever it may be. I forgot the main point.
And that producer may have been successful 30 years ago and at the top of their game. Some producers do, just like in any industry, some producers, people do a good job of continuing to evolve and develop and learn and adapt with technology. And some people don't. So that producer could have been incredible and should be highly respected and regarded for their work, but doesn't mean that they're a producer of today's music industry.
And they're not trying to defraud you.
No.
Exactly.
So that is the biggest problem I find in our business is people get themselves into really sticky situations that are awful for them. But nobody was really trying to harm anybody. Now there are people that do. And I mean, you can do all of the research. You can do it all properly. And this happened to me with an artist of mine in LA. And you can do everything right. You can do your research, you can have your conversations, your pre-production, reference tracks, the budget, the producer agreement. We did it all like the professionals do. And this particular producer, at the end of the sessions, we did 3 songs, decided he wasn't releasing the stems, he wasn't releasing the masters or stems or anything, unless the artist gave up 50% of writer share, 50% of publishing, or 50% of the master. Writer share and master, I think, were the 2 things. And, she was horrified and heartbroken because we loved these songs. They were finally, she was like on her 3rd producer, really trying to get her and really understand her. And finally we were there. We were so excited because the song sounded amazing. And then he pulled that. So our options, because he had control of the masters, and he was already paid. So he had already been paid and then didn't deliver. So our options are try to reason with him. He was unreasonable and then wouldn't come around. And then your only recourse is court. But when we did the math on court, which the lawyer said we would win, hands down, of course, he's in breach of contract. But the amount of time it would take and the amount of money it would take was like, you're looking at 4 years at the time, 3 to 4 years and like $25,000.
So might as well just go someplace else.
So she's going to lose all that runway on her career time and all that money. And so we just took the same 3 songs and went to another producer and did it. But so just, there are people out there who are, not good people. But if you do enough, asking questions and looking into their background, you're going to find something that gives you a bit of a red flag. And even if you're working with a team, like I do my best to match up producers with artists, and I've had it go completely sideways. And it's all people I love, like producers I love working with, and I can see it, and I'm sure it's going to work out great. And for whatever reason, there's a communication breakdown between the artist and that producer, and it just goes all sideways. And it's
just like any other relationships. Like sometimes things happen. And trust is broken and nobody intentionally did it. But once trust is broken, it can be really hard to repair sometimes.
We're in the business of human beings.
That's right.
We're in the business of people.
And also artists and creators and creatives who sometimes can be on the emotional side.
We feel things so
deeply, and it's hard to, sometimes it's just people. Like, so you either fight with someone or you don't. It's not personal.
And
it doesn't have to be.
It's not personal. That's it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it is so personal because it's your art, right? Like, you're making a baby with somebody. That's not personal. Like, but it's true. You have to learn to develop that business side of you. You have to develop your voice to speak up and really learn to communicate what you want. Ask for what you need, which women are not good at.
And ask why.
Ask your why. What's your why? Why are you? If you feel like you're chasing, that's an indicator for you. So, and don't rush. And that's the other underlying thing in here that we hear all the time with artists is, because I really want to get this, like, it's November 3rd or whatever date it is, and I really want to get this out by December 15th. Oh, okay. Why?
Like, why December 15th? Why is that?
Well, because, I just, and I hear this, the world needs to hear this music. And it just, like, everything in me just, you know, you want to be supportive and go, and I hear this all the time, you know, this music needs to get out there. I said, okay, well, let's just do a check there for a second. No, the music doesn't need to go anywhere because you have nobody waiting for this music.
Exactly.
Nobody's waiting to listen to this music. I mean, if Taylor Swift, who is the queen of the universe as far as music goes and business and planning and everything, takes as much time as she does to like roll it all out, and she's got teams of people. I mean, and literally she could drop new music tomorrow and a gazillion billion people would listen to it. So she doesn't even have to do all of that for her audience, you
But
know?
she still does.
But she still does, because really planning it out and being thorough about what you're doing and why is so key. And like, check your ego. Nobody's waiting for that music. The reason you feel that way as artists is because we're constantly looking for the sense of validation and making our choice of our life real. And so if we're releasing music, we are now an artist. It's real. Nobody can argue with you. But the truth of the matter is, if you are an artist, you're an artist because you're breathing. That's it. You don't have to do anything, put anything out or anything. That's just the fabric of your DNA. You are an artist. Yeah. Everything else is a bonus that you get to do that. And it doesn't have, it's not a validator.
And it's that sense too, like a lot of going on that feeling. It's the, other people are releasing music, so I need to. Or
yes,
I
the
haven't released
thing.
music in like a long time.
I'm
so
falling behind. I'm falling behind.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But it's like, no, you're not. Like this is a concept that we have created in ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
It's that feeling.
I saw it was Tom Hanks, I think, that posted or was talking about it on whatever. And he said it was Leonardo da Vinci only sold one painting when he was alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody got it. It wasn't in, it wasn't trendy, it wasn't the thing. Oh no, it wasn't Tom Hanks. It was sorry, James. It was James Taylor. Sorry, James. I don't know why I thought it was Tom Hanks. But anyways, so he was like, he only sold one painting while he was alive. Nobody got him nor anything. And now he is affecting generations of artists and pop culture and the whole bit. So you just don't know. So keep your head down and focus on what you're doing in your art, and then bring a producer, an engineer, your team in that is in alignment with what you are trying to do, instead of looking to them to help you define what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And that's another thing. When you know what you want to do, they're going to be able to help you create that.
Yeah.
But if you don't even know, then when you get something back and you try to relay it, they're going to take as much as you give them and give it back to you. So if you don't really know and it's kind of confusing and they get whatever you're laying down and it comes back to you and you're like,
it's going to be kind of confusing and not quite sure.
Yeah, you're just going to go around in circles.
That's what you're getting back. Or you're going to be like, oh, like this isn't what I wanted. Well, you don't even know what you want. So if you can't sit and be like, and that doesn't mean that you have to have a producer mind.
Yes.
Like it's just about knowing you.
Yeah.
Knowing you, what you want your music to sound like.
Yes. And there's a difference between the music you consume and the music you create. So like I love like Motown. I feed on Motown, soul, all of that. That is like, I can listen to that all day long, every day, forever. And it comes into the flavors of my music, but it is not the core of what I create. And so, because now that I've figured out my sound and who I am and stuff like that, and made peace with it, because I've fought it for so long.
She knows who she is. Shameless plug. I know who I am. Tara's latest single. Check it out.
I know who I am. How many times can we say I know who I am?
I know who I am, exactly.
Like I know who I am.
I know. Finally, after all these decades, I do. So I was always wanting to be like someone else. I wish I sounded like somebody else. I hated the sound of my voice. I hated it. I was like, this is awful. Why does anybody even like me singing? Like I couldn't make peace with it, because that's a self-love thing. That's a self-worth thing, and I had to grow into that. So, but differentiate what you consume and what feeds you and fuels you and makes you who you are, and what you create. Right. Those are two different things.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing that's going to be exactly like what you make, which I find so interesting and so awesome in music. 'Cause it's like, it could be like the same genre, like pop, alternative, indie, country, whatever, but it's not going to sound like you, which is like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're the one variable. Like
Yeah.
when we say this all the time in our classes and stuff, it's like we're all using the same 12 notes in the North American music system and the same chords and the same instruments, the same DAWs, the same programs, the same. And the only part of the equation that's different is how you hear the notes and what you have to say.
Yeah.
And so the journey isn't about becoming something, it's about discovering or revealing who you are to the world.
Yeah.
And so you really want a producer and team that are gonna facilitate that happening, that unfolding.
Yeah, and when you find a team that you can be that comfortable with, right, and you have that type of a relationship, you are allowing yourself and them to go to that space, right? Because again, you're creating just in a different way. So if you don't feel safe or comfortable enough to get to a vulnerable state, then you're not going to be able to bring everything out of that song that you could. So again, finding that person that, if they don't have the fancy name, but you guys gel and you know it and you guys are on the same level, then go with it.
And there's also an opportunity to grow with that partnership
Exactly,
too,
because you guys
right?
can grow that sound together.
Yeah.
That's so important. You want to find people that are on the same rung of the ladder as you are and kind of come up together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So pre-production is huge. Spend your time doing that. Spend your time researching who you're working with. Find the people, but ease your way into it. Don't get locked into things without spending enough time with the person. And then find your voice, speak up, say what you need, be clear on what you want.
Talk about money up
Talk
front.
about money
Yes,
up front
talk
and
about all
splits
the
and expectations and just don't be afraid. And then you should be smooth.
Exactly. And like this is just like the musical producer side of pre-production. We still have all the other sides of pre-production to go down to.
Yeah.
But that'll be for another episode.
Tune in to another.
Exactly. Unless you want a 72-hour episode. Just go all night.
A Syn Wagon marathon.
Syn Wagon marathon.
A Synathon.
Oh my God, a Synathon I'm in. And again, just follow what makes you happy. Do what you want.
Follow your joy.
Follow your joy. I feel like that's how we're going to start ending every episode. It's just like, and after all of this input, just like do what you want.
Yeah.
Follow your joy.
All you got to do is be you.
you. Yeah. But that's it. Like, you got to follow what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And when you get to work with people that you have that connection with, like all of us, working together, like, it's just joy. Like you follow that, you find that,
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work.
it doesn't feel like work anymore.
No, exactly.
Thanks for jumping on the wagon and sitting with us today.
Nicely
the
done.
Nicely done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely singing.
I'm Jessica,
I'm Tara.
Sam.
I'm Mikayla.
and we'll see you next episode. Humans.
Later.
Later. I was like, I just made a face, and I was like, oh yeah, they can't see it.
No.